Hello and welcome. My name is Grace. This is my channel. Welcome back. And welcome if you're new here. Um, so, okay, let me get this out of the way. I am posting, the plan is to post on a weekly basis. I missed last week because I honestly didn't feel like talking to the camera. I didn't feel like talking to anybody really last week. I learned on Saturday that my dear friend and mentor, my first ever sister in the craft, died on Friday morning of last week. Not this past Friday, the one before. So I had last spoken to her a couple of days prior. And yeah, so that's where we're at. So I didn't feel like talking to anyone nor the camera. I had nothing to say. So here I am today. And today I wanted to open up today I don't even know why I do this, because by the time I upload the video, there's a title in the title bar and there's a description if I think of writing a description. I wrote a listicle on my Instagram weeks ago about 5 things I don't do anymore, and I wanted to expand on it a little bit, just to ease into the whole coming back to YouTube more regularly. And so here we are. According to my list on Instagram, I had 5 things, and I'm going to expand on them, and they're going to go a little bit more broad than they are on my Instagram. The first one was haircuts. And I was one of those people who was thankfully employed during the pandemic. I was one of those people, working full time. And I wasn't part of the culture that was home, locked down, and having to learn or wanting to learn how to do things themselves, because they used to get these services that were not available during that lockdown. And so for the first year and a half of the pandemic, I just didn't cut my hair. I didn't get a haircut. And there's a reason I tell this story, people. I know it's like, what the fuck are you talking about hair, Grace? But I have to talk about it because it leads into other things. And then my hair had gotten quite long, and I felt that also for work, I was getting headaches from putting my hair up for work. I was going to get a haircut. And I had no less than 1, 2, 3, 4 haircuts in a 12-month period, one worse than the next. I heard all kinds of excuses from stylists because we're wearing masks, and all kinds of excuses. And here's where I wished, in hindsight, I look back and I say, well, maybe I needed to be thinking outside the box, but I was exhausted, right? Like a lot of people that we were out there that were we were frontline people, and I just wanted a haircut. And not only did they butcher my hair each time, and this is it wasn't a cheap salon or anything like that, right? It's here we have the Aveda salons, and anyway, you get the gist. It's supposed to be higher end, right? Because of the products they sell, not because of the people that work there. No shade on hairstylists, but shade on hairstylists, because seriously, what the fuck? All right. It's okay. You're welcome to comment below, and you can hit that dislike button. Be my guest. Finally, after a couple of years of these really bad haircuts, one worse than the next. I'll tell you the one that was the last straw. The haircut that was the last straw that broke the camel's back was it was January 2023. It was the first week of January. I was off for a couple of days, was heading back to work. The following day, I booked an appointment at a salon I'd been to many times before. I brought a picture, Okay, because I know someone's just waiting to say, well, people are, hairstylists especially will say, well, people are unrealistic. They bring pictures of movie stars and people that look nothing like them with different hair texture and yada, yada, yada. I brought a picture of myself. I always brought a picture of me with the haircut that I was, with the hairstyle that I like the best. And I would say, can you do this? I don't know if the hairstylist just dismissed it and thought it was a freaking magazine photo or something like that. I don't know. If they thought it was a I would actually say, this is a picture of me. Can you make me look like this again? Well, no, apparently not. Apparently not, folks. Apparently not. So the last haircut I had was January 2023. After that, I let it grow out a bit because it was uneven. It was a mess. I evened it out myself with mirrors and scissors and all that stuff. And then I just let it grow. And then I just let it grow for about, I don't know, 6 months or so. And then 6 months later, I gave myself my first YouTube haircut. I've never looked back. You know why? Because I don't charge myself anything. And when I tell myself what I want, that's exactly what I do. So there's that. So there's other services that there's other services. There's no other services I pay for right now other than dental hygiene. Because, I consider dental hygiene is different than going for a dental appointment, right? Like it's dental hygiene, it's maintenance. That is the only service that I pay for. I do everything myself. And I think what's wild is I'm of the generation where we used to do everything ourselves. We go to the drugstore and we get what we would need. We would get what we needed. We would buy our hair dye and all this stuff. And our friends would trim our ends if we needed our hair trimmed. And of course, in my midst, I had a friend who had gone to hair school, so that helped. But even if you didn't have friends that went to hair school, we all kind of knew how to do these things, right? And because our mothers did them. I think that so there's also that nostalgia factor of doing everything myself, and also it's that resilience and that independence and that autonomy where anything that I could learn to do myself, I will. And we live in this incredible age, people, that you just have to look it up on YouTube and someone has a video showing you how to do it. You can watch multiple people do the same task, the same craft, the same repair, whatever it is. You can watch multiple videos from different people to get different points of view on how to do things. It's incredible. So number one, is haircuts, but for me it has a broader sense than that. There's so many things that I don't pay a seamstress for anything because I learned how to sew when I was a kid. But you can learn right now, wherever you are in your skill level, you could learn to do, let's say, a repair, sewing, hand sewing, or whatever, machine sewing, whatever it is that you want to learn how to do by watching freaking videos. It's wild, man. It's wild. Maybe one of the things I want to do to contribute back, to give back a little bit to the community that provided me help with like all these DIY videos, is maybe start posting some of my own, where any skill of something that I know how to do, just share, hey, this is how I do it, for other people to watch and learn, right, from me, and just like I watched and learned from other people. So yeah, so that's it. So save money, no services for no personal services of any kind. Anything I could do myself, I do myself. And I have to say, again, it's really good. You know, we talk a lot about self-care, self-esteem, and being empowerment. I think the first step towards self-esteem and empowerment and autonomy is to learn how to do things for yourself, whether it's hair cutting, like I just said, to cooking. Learn how, if you don't know how to cook, learn how to cook. You save money, you eat better. I'm telling you, I'm feeling this pull, and I don't know, it could be my age. It could just be that I'm getting older. You know what I'm saying? Like that could be it. But I'm feeling this pull towards promoting autonomy and promoting independence and promoting self-sufficiency. And again, it's a huge self-esteem booster. There's so much satisfaction if you have a hole in your favorite shirt to repair it. Oh, which then brings me to another tangent. I tend to make repairs. So there's two kinds of repair. I was trained by a finishing seamstress, and so I know. So what I was trained in doing was hand sewing, finishing garments, higher end garments and stuff like that, but just any garment, right? And it was to make it in repairs invisible. So that's my forte, making repairs invisible. So I'm exploring making visible repairs because I think that's fun too. It customizes your clothes. It's all about that. So I pay no money for services. Period. None, except for dental hygiene. It's important. Take care of your teeth. All right. Number 2. So, you know that saying, oh, people come into your life for a reason, a season, a lifetime. You know who wrote that shit? I bet you a fucking user wrote that shit. Okay, I'm a little salty, and of course, I've already dropped the F bomb, but I'm going to explain to you why. See, if I enter your life, I don't enter your life for a reason, which would be like self serving or whatever, right? I'm not showing up in your life because I need something from you, primarily or at all, or only, sorry, not at all, only. Nor, if I show up in your life, do I appear for a season, whatever the fuck that means. I guess a little bit longer than a reason. I don't just want something from you. I want multiple things from you. Is that what that means? No, seriously, we need to parse this one out. This one needs to be examined. And then lifetime. Okay, well, things happen. People move or far away or whatever. But I want to focus. When I said in that listicle when I posted on that listicle on my Instagram, so things I'm not doing anymore, I'm not wasting my time chasing after people who I know in real life, who we used to see each other all the time when they needed something from me. I'm sure lots of you are watching this and you relate. That's why I'm bringing it up. When they needed something from me, those people that you met, you click, you have a lot in common, but it's a one-sided relationship. Oh, someone said that. Someone called it a one-sided relationship. But it's a one-sided relationship. They're happy to hang out with you because they're getting free therapy. You're not a therapist. I'm not a therapist, but they're getting something out of it that is akin to free therapy. Or they're getting something out of it, but you're not. You kind of discover that. I'll give an example, a real life example. That once their problem is solved, Or once their problem or their fixation, whatever it is their fixation is, or they're fixated on, or whatever it is that they're needing encouragement for. When you've outlived your purpose, they have zero time for you. Zero. Nothing. Okay. So I used to so I need to explain a little bit about, because they're not at fault here. It's just it's the dynamic that I'm stepping away from. So these people are not at fault, or people who were in my life in that respect are not at fault. There's also me too. I'm one of those people. I'm not really good at keeping in touch, primarily when I'm going through a rough time. So I didn't keep in touch with anybody during the pandemic at all. At all. I'm going to give you an example. This one blew my mind. I didn't keep in touch with anybody during the pandemic, and being a healthcare professional, one would think that perhaps people who've known me my whole life would have checked in on me. Hey, how's it going? What's up? I haven't heard from you. You haven't posted on Facebook. What's going on? Instead, what I experienced, and this is one example, was someone who I'd known almost my whole life. I knew them since we were kids. We've been friends since we were kids. Took my silence, rather read into the fact that I wasn't liking all their fucking posts on Facebook and oohing and eyeing with every freaking selfie they were posting, because I wasn't even on Facebook, especially during the pandemic. It was like, no. They unfriended me. They unfriended me. They'd known me almost 40 years. They knew my occupation. Obviously, they didn't notice that I wasn't posting at all on my Facebook. They just noticed that I wasn't engaged on theirs. And they unfriended me. I didn't know they unfriended me until I sent them a message saying, hey, how's it going? Whatever. And then it's like, whoa, wait a second. You unfriended me? And their reply was everything that everything I just said. Do you remember what I just said? Their reply was, oh, I figured, you wouldn't notice anyway, because I hadn't been engaging on theirs. Whoa. So there's a couple of examples, right? So I'm not here to give free therapy to people. And this is specifically to people in real life, right? It's different. Online relationships are so much different. And, the boundaries are different. How you meet people is different, right? This is specifically for in-person, like in real life people. Okay? If you live in my town and you keep saying to me, oh, we should meet up. Oh, we should go for coffee. I understand the social cue that it's used just as a platitude. Nobody means it. But if we used to see each other almost like, every day or every other day or every week, and you don't follow up, then I have decided to stop reaching out. The same goes for people on the opposite side. If you don't hear from me, then you're free. Don't feel obliged. Don't feel obliged to send me the message, how's it going, whatever. It's okay. It's okay. We're all free. We're all free, because I have to be free and everybody else has to be free. Okay, I know that sounded really harsh, but I've had some weird shit, man. You know what the pandemic was like for me? It was like when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I went to school in Montreal, and then at the end of the school year, I would go back to the States for the summer because I was on a student visa. And every year was the same shit. I would leave in June or July. I'd be gone until the end of August. I'd come back and, well, my friends had moved on. My friends had moved on. They paired up with each other and they did stuff together, and I had to every freaking school year I had to reinitiate and remake friends. Sometimes with existing friends and sometimes with new friends. So when the lockdown ended and everything started to transition back to normal, back to the new normal, it felt like fucking coming back after being gone in the summer. And yeah, no, no. I'm an old lady, man. I can't do this shit anymore. You know what I mean? We're either friends or we're not. And especially in person, like in real life friends, right? We're either friends or we're not. Now, anyone who knows me well knows that I'm not really good at keeping in touch. I'm quite introverted. I'm going to be working on that. 2025, it's one of the things I'll be working on, keeping in touch with the people, making the effort with the people that I value. Next. Number 3. On Instagram, I wrote down toxic people. I'm going to generalize. I'm going to expand here and say toxic environments. No, I have no time for toxic environments because toxic environments contain toxic people. Now, if it's a job, if a job is a toxic environment, because the reality is that it's most likely to be a toxic environment, then limit the exposure. Limit my exposure, limit my exposure and maintain my boundaries. Do my job, don't get involved, and don't let the stink, don't let the toxic stench come home with me. So that requires a lot of effort. That requires a lot of work. That requires being mindful that, okay, but also, this is going to tie into number 2. So where I come from, okay, and which is, it's kind of like fucked up to say too, because I kind of come from America. Like I come from the States and Montreal at the same time. But primarily where I worked was Montreal. In Montreal, Quebec. It may have changed. I've been gone for over 20 years. My God. Almost 30 years. No, okay, I exaggerated. I've been gone for about 25 years. I left in 1998. Yeah. Anyway, you can do the math. Better than me, I bet. Work culture was different than when I moved to Ontario, Toronto specifically, and then here, British Columbia. The interior. I don't live in Vancouver. And when I was living in Montreal, up until the late 90s, it was your work colleagues became your friends. They were your work friend group. There was a strong sense of camaraderie. You made friends at work that sometimes whether you worked together forever or not, you remained friends forever. And this culture does not exist outside of Montreal, Quebec that I've seen at all. At all. So to tie back into toxic people and environments, socially, I could totally avoid toxic environments and people. I don't owe anybody anything. when it comes to socially. But in the context of work, well, fuck, we all have to go to work. We have to have, and sometimes we have to engage in, we have to work and function in toxic environments, right? So whatever, that's fine. But I don't have to be their friend. I don't have to be friends with the people I work with. And it took me a while to understand. Not that I didn't understand it, but it took me a while to accept that is not a thing here. It's cliquey here. But I mean, like, the last place I worked in Montreal, we used to all go out. Like, everybody who wanted to go out, and we were a lot of employees, like, in this environment. We used to all meet at Peel Pub on Friday nights. Not always the same gang, but we all worked together. Whether or not we sat beside each other at work or interacted outside of work, it didn't matter. Like, this was something we used to do to unwind at the end of the week. And we would get to know each other a little bit, and we'd help each other out with, like, things like, if someone was moving, a bunch of us from work would show up to help them move, that kind of stuff. I haven't seen this outside of Montreal, Quebec, and you know what? It's been 25 years that I'm gone, or whatever. It's been since 1998 that the math is bad. Is it 27 years that I'm gone? Fuck. I gotta stop expecting it. I have to stop miserating about it. You know what I mean? I have to stop being miserable about it. Okay. Miserable. That's my word. You just heard it here publicly for the first time. All right. Toxic people and environments. If you can't avoid, limit your exposure is what I'm going to do is not you. I'm going to talk about myself. If I can't avoid the toxic environment, I'm going to limit my exposure and maintain my boundaries. Number four that I posted was blending in, flying under the radar, not calling attention to myself. The blending in part, this shit takes a lot of energy, depending where you are, depending what your environment is. Trying to maintain a low profile. There's so many ways to describe this, right? But what it boils down to is not being yourself. Last year I was in a situation where it was almost like, have you ever, I'm going to ask you a question and you can share in the comments below. Have you ever been in a situation where people know who you are? They know about you, right? You haven't hidden a part of yourself that perhaps they don't agree with. Perhaps you're the witchy persuasion, you're into tarot cards, whatever your thing is, right? They know this about you. They've known this about you forever, whether it's friends, families, neighbors, whatever. But suddenly as you're getting older, and of course they're getting older too, you're getting the hint, the nonverbal cue that you need to shut the fuck up because you're alternative. It's the only way I could describe this. You're not the norm, or where someone takes control of the environment you're in, and you get that nonverbal cue that it's better to just keep to yourself, fly under the radar. And this is I say that this is a way to keep safe in general, right? But when you're with people who know who you are and you're suddenly getting the cue from them that you need to sit down, Fred, shut the fuck up, and we don't want to hear about your interests because they're blasphemous. No. That too is that whole blending in, flying under the radar. It's different. You know what I mean? Like what you do for safety, you do for safety. But if you suddenly feel that people know who you are, and you're 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 feeling like they're telling you to make yourself small, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm weird and I'm out there, man. That's all I'm going to say about that for here. The last one is people pleasing. I guess this one, people pleasing, ties into number 4, blending in. It ties into number 3, the toxic environment, because, how do what happens when you're in a toxic environment? You end up people pleasing to, keep the stench off of you, kind of thing. It also ties into those people who don't have time for you. People pleasing. People pleasing is something that, so all of these things that I'm talking about are things that I'm working on, right? Because I wish I could tell you, hey, I mastered all this shit. No, oh my God, not even by a long shot. But when it comes to people pleasing, it's really hard to pinpoint when one does it. Because if you grew up in an environment where it was easier to placate, to just calm shit down, you're automatically a people pleaser. You've been raised to be a people pleaser. And women in general, okay, this is where this is where there's a gender role assignment here. Women are taught to people please. We're taught to shut up and keep the peace. Shut up and keep the peace is people pleasing. And if you don't know what people pleasing is, to me at first it sounded really benign. It's like people pleasing. No, I even said no. I'm not a people pleaser. Come on. I'm like I don't fall over myself to please people. Well, I do whatever I can to put out a fire. You know what I mean? It's because I grew up in a very explosive household in terms of personalities and the yelling. I'm Italian. And very unpredictable, with some unpredictable adults, or adults who behaved unpredictably. And I learned really, really early to just clam up, and do not draw attention to myself, blend in, to limit my exposure and to maintain my boundaries. The thing is, I learned how to do it so well that I'm doing it all the time with the people pleasing, right? And it's like, I hate to admit it, but I am. And I've spoken to quite a few people in the last couple of months who said, yeah, that's chronic. There's a lot of us, but it's also, again, gender roles, man. Gender roles. Gen X raised by Italian immigrants, man. I'm pretty sure there's lots of other people who can relate. In the comments below, tell me how you relate, because I'm pretty sure it's not just us, right? I want to know your family environment and how you realized that you were trained like a freaking seal to people please. All right. So I added a few more, which I think also tie into the theme of these 5 things, right? Explaining myself is one of those things that going forward, I'm going to be like, so the first 5 things are things I don't do anymore intentionally. That doesn't mean I don't do them anymore. It means, well, except for like haircuts and the people thing, number 2, right? But, toxic environments you can't help. But, I have to really be mindful to maintain my boundaries. The blending in too, same kind of thing, and the people pleasing, right? Those are things that I'm not doing them anymore. I'm intending not to do them anymore, but I'm pretty sure that I'm still doing them, and I'm just going to try to be more mindful and to work on that. Explaining myself. The most stark example of explaining myself is, I started this video explaining why I didn't put out a video last week. I didn't have to, but I felt like I did. So that's like a pretty simple, but explaining myself, when somebody asks you for something and the answer is no, no is a complete sentence. You don't need to explain to someone why you can't do it, because explaining I thought it was being helpful, explaining myself, but it's funny. People are funny creatures, right? There's what we say, and then the receiver doesn't always receive the message the way we transmitted it. People see us. How people see us the way that they see us, not what we project. They see us how they are, not how we are. There we go. So people see us as they are, not as how we are. So the point I'm trying to make here is, too often I'm explaining to be transparent, and it's viewed as an excuse. So fuck you, I'm not doing that anymore. Next. And then some things I'm doing just for going forward. I started last year. I'm not shopping for sport, but I did do some shopping for sport last year in 2024. It's a consumerist culture. There's no getting away from it. You can rail all you want against the machine of capitalism and consumerism. It really is a lot of work to avoid it. It really is. But I'm going to do my best, and 2025 is no shopping for sport. And when I mean by shopping for sport, it's it's not just the buying, it's the time wasted. The time wasted scrolling online for hours looking for something to buy to self-medicate, whether it be to cheer yourself up, to reward yourself, whatever the case is. That's the kind of stuff that I am endeavoring to avoid. And already in 2025, I caught myself. Here I am thinking I'm doing really good, and I caught myself yesterday. I bought some things I didn't need because it was sad. So grief is not an excuse to it's not an excuse for me personally. Everyone does what they want. Again, everything I'm saying today, you do what you want, but I do ask that you share in the comments anything you do differently. You know what I mean? Whether you agree with what I'm doing, or you have something to add, or you disagree, that's the conversation I want to have with people. I don't want a fucking echo chamber. I pulled myself away from echo chambers years ago. All right. And the last thing I wanted to add, and I think that goes, I don't know where that fits in, but being a completionist. I think I mentioned in my last video that I was, I used to be one of those people, I would start a book and I had to finish that one book before I could move on to the next book. And I feel like I'm missing out on a lot. I'm missing out on a lot doing that. I feel like I'm going to be doing it differently this year. I'm going to allow myself to have. Now, I used to do this with nonfiction books, where I would have several books on the go, but I think it's okay. I'm going to open it up also to fiction, which already I'm going to be opening myself up to fiction, because fiction is not something that I get into easily. I'm more of a nonfiction reader, and a lot of that has to do with, I don't know, I think it had to do more with stress than anything else. Because as a kid, I loved fiction. I loved fiction. I loved the classics and all that stuff. So I think that has a lot to do with, like, adulting, whatever influence that had on my life. Becoming an adult with, like, stress and all that bullshit that we all have, right? But in 2025, I'm not going to be a completionist. If I start a book and it's and it does and it like that, if I start a book, not that the nothing wrong with the book, but it doesn't sustain is the word I was looking, and it sustains. No, does not sustain my interest. It's okay to let it go. It's okay to close the book and to put it away, return it to the library, whatever the case is, shut off the Audible and move on to the next one. I'm going to allow myself to do that. If I read a third of the book, if I read a quarter of the book, I consider that read. If I read a third of it, I consider. If I read all the way to the last chapter and didn't finish it, I consider that book read. I read enough to form an opinion about it. And that's what I want to do for 2025. Avoid being a completionist. Avoid being, like, rigid in the way I approach media in general. Same thing with a TV series, you name it. But especially with books. I want to go back to what I used to do, which have several books on the go, just like the way, we used to consume television. We used to have several TV shows that were favorites that we would watch every week, right? And I want to set up my reading to pretty much mirror that, where, tonight I'm in the mood for Anna Karenina, so I'm going to pick up where I left off on Anna Karenina. The next night, I'm in the mood to listen to more of Debbie Harry's Face Off. Face Off? No, Face It. Face Off. That kind of stuff is where I'm going with this. Also, being a completionist has also kind of, like, clogged up my personal library. I don't know, I'm just fiddling with something here. Being a completionist has really clogged up my personal library, and with books that I only own because they're part of a collection, a set, whatever. Whether it be I'm collecting books on a subject or collecting books by a specific author. I want to, this is the year that I'm going to really streamline my personal library. And you don't have to keep everything, people. You don't have to keep everything, is what I'm telling myself. I don't have to keep 20 books on a subject because they are the 20 books that I found on that subject. I only need to keep the ones that are really, really good and free up some space for, you guessed it, new books. All right. So that's my expansion on my listicle of the 5 things I no longer do and more. Please, in the comments, I think I already invited you. Please, in the comments, share I didn't. What is something you stopped doing that was just something you did mindlessly because everybody else did it, or you've always done it? What is something you gave up? I want to know, that you just said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. What is something that is a social convention that you gave up, that you don't do anymore? I'm going to leave you with this thought. I had a colleague years ago. She's since passed away. And she told me that turning 60 is freaking amazing. She said because when you turn 60, you could pretty much tell people, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do, and you could tell people where to go. You could tell people to fuck off. Those were her words. You don't have to do, when you turn 60 is amazing because you don't have to do anything you don't want to do anymore, and you could tell people to fuck off. Now, I'm not advocating that we do that because society has to continue. We have to maintain our relationships. We have to like not fuck up our relationships with our kids and our spouses and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is, what are things that you've let go of? What are things that you haven't let go of, but you think, you know what, Grace? This is something I feel like I could let go of because it's a social convention, or it's, whatever, or something I've always done, and it doesn't serve me, it doesn't serve anybody else, it doesn't, it doesn't give me anything. All right, that's it. So I will see you next week, and until then, wherever you are in the world, I am wishing you a wonderful and beautiful day. Bye-bye.